It was a hot and bright afternoon in Lagos. The sun hung high in the sky, its golden rays bouncing off the shiny metal roofs and parked vehicles at a busy motor park. The air buzzed with the chatter of travelers, hawkers calling out their goods, and the honks of impatient drivers. A white 16-seater bus sat idling at the edge of the park, its driver leaning against the door, calling for more passengers. Abuja. Abuja. Only 3 seats left, he shouted, waving his hand to attract attention. People moved about in a rush. A man in a neatly pressed suit lugged his suitcase, sweat glistening on his forehead as he approached the bus. Behind him, a young mother held her toddler, adjusting the wrapper tied around her waist. She looked tired but determined as she climbed into the bus. Inside, the passengers settled into their seats. There was a university student scrolling through her phone, a trader with bags of wares tucked under her feet, and an elderly man clutching a leather-bound Bible tightly in his hands. The atmosphere was lively, with conversations mixing with the sound of the idling engine. Suddenly, a quiet man dressed in black joined the bus. His presence was strange, not because of how he looked, but because of how silent he was. He wore a long black shirt, and his eyes scanned the crowd briefly before stepping in without a word. Nobody paid him much attention as he took a seat at the back, staring out the window. The driver finally climbed into his seat, slamming the door shut. He turned on the radio, blasting a high-life tune that filled the bus as it began to roll out of the park. As the journey started, the sunlit road stretched ahead, shimmering in the afternoon heat. Laughter and light conversations filled the bus. The young mother cooed at her baby, the trader chatted with the student about the cost of goods, and the driver hummed along to the music. But a few minutes into the trip, the elderly man with the Bible suddenly frowned. He looked around the bus, then glanced out the window. His grip tightened on his Bible. He muttered something under his breath, closing his eyes for a moment as though in silent prayer. The man in black, sitting at the back, smirked slightly as if he'd heard. But no one noticed. The bus sped down the sunlit highway, the engine humming steadily. Outside, the sky was clear, and the road stretched endlessly, flanked by dry grass swaying under the midday sun. An elderly man with a Bible sat stiffly, his fingers trembling as he turned a page, lips moving in silent prayer. His eyes darted nervously around the bus. Something about the journey felt wrong, though he couldn't explain why. "Baba, you dey okay?" asked the trader beside him, counting money in her lap. "My spirit no rest, my daughter. Something dey worry me," he said, pale and serious. The trader chuckled nervously. "Baba, no fear. No sunny day, we go reach well." At the back, a man in black sat still, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He didn't move or speak, a shadow unnoticed. Nearby, a young mother hummed softly, soothing her fussing baby. Across the aisle, a university student glanced up from her phone, frowning. "Driver, why you dey slow down?" she asked. The driver, gripping the wheel tightly, muttered, "Road no clear." His voice was tense. Ahead, the road seemed empty, but the air grew heavier, the mood uneasy. "The blood of Jesus. Father, cover us," the elderly man prayed louder. "Baba, abeg, stop. You dey scare us," the trader snapped, her laughter gone. Suddenly, the baby wailed, a sharp, desperate cry that pierced the air. The mother jolted, trying to calm him, but the sound didn't stop. "Driver, wetin dey happen?" a passenger demanded. The driver's hands shook, sweat dripping as he stared ahead. Then it happened. The man in black shifted. Slowly, he turned toward the passengers, a faint smirk on his lips. His eyes were dark, too dark, holding shadows within them. The elderly man froze, whispering, "Jesus, have mercy." The man in black blinked. The baby stopped crying. The radio crackled and cut off. The engine sputtered. The bus, One speeding, skidded violently to the side. Passengers screamed as the tires screeched. Bags tumbled from overhead racks. The world outside blurred into dust and chaos. "Driver, stop the bus. Jesus, help us." The driver yanked the wheel, terror on his face, but it was too late. The bus veered off the road, hitting the ditch with a deafening crash. The world went still. Dust rose into the air, settling quietly like ash. The bus lay mangled in the ditch, its frame twisted, windows shattered. Survivors groaned, scattered across the ground, some barely moving, others crying out for help. The bright sun beat down mercilessly, indifferent to the chaos below. The elderly man stood first, blood trickling down his face. His trembling hands reached for his Bible, miraculously unharmed. "God, deliver us," he whispered. The young mother crawled from the wreckage, clutching her baby tightly. Around her, voices screamed for their loved ones. "Where is the driver?" someone cried. But the driver's seat was empty, the door hanging open. Then, they saw him, the man in black. Standing a few meters away, hands in his pockets, he stared at the scene with cold indifference. The elderly man pointed a shaking hand. "You? Who are you?" The man in black tilted his head, a faint smile on his lips. "It doesn't matter," he said softly. But they did not pray. The words hung in the air, chilling everyone to silence. Survivors shivered as the wind carried an unnatural cold. When they looked again, the man in black was gone. The elderly man fell to his knees, clutching his Bible. "Pray before you go. Always pray." Suddenly, a loud gasp broke the silence. A young man jolted awake, his chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. He looked around, startled. He was in his room. Sunlight streamed through the window, birds chirping outside. "It was just a dream," he whispered, his heart still pounding. But it felt too real, the screams, the twisted bus, the man in black. His phone buzzed on the bedside table. It was a message. "Are you ready? The bus leaves in an hour. Don't be late." The young man froze. The exact same journey from his dream. Terror gripped him. Dropping to his knees, his hands pressed together tightly. "God, thank you for the warning. I pray for your protection. Cover me, Lord. I will not ignore this." He prayed with all his heart, then made his decision. He wouldn't travel without prayer. Outside, the sun shone brightly, but the young man now understood, evil exists, and prayer is the shield.
Enjoyed the story? Like, comment, and share to support. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching.